What is oppositional defiant disorder? In order for us to learn more about it, we sat down with Dr. Michael Evans, school psychologist.
It's a fairly complex condition. It is a prolonged, systematic pattern of, as given, oppositional behavior. So very negative approaches, very combative with children, not children, with children around them definitely, as well as with positions of authority. So they very much see authority figures as a challenge to them, and then they specifically target and disrupt that figure. And the drive for that, I can't really tell you specifically because it varies from child to child, but definitely it is that combative oppositional pattern of behavior. To really diagnose it, though, you have to see it for over 6 months. So it can't just be an intermittent, like an episode of defiance, nothing that can really just show up for a day or two. It is just this consistent pattern for kids that just affects them for a prolonged period of time.
What would you look for in a classroom?
Well, really, so this is where I stand on oppositional defiant disorder. It's very difficult to diagnose because it is comorbid with so many conditions. So I think the first step would be to attempt to rule out any other conditions. So if I were just looking in a classroom and trying to figure out what is going on for this kid, or does this child have oppositional defiant disorder, I would just look at the pattern of behavior. Are they trying to combat with me or my directives just to push back? Are they having trouble interacting with their peers? Are they easily frustrated or easily upset by things that happen in the classroom? Do they disrupt or break down when faced with any challenge or any task that they're not choosing for themselves? It very much is just a challenge and a challenge and a challenge. The catch then is to say, what is causing this child to begin this pattern of challenging and pattern of taking on authority the way they do? So yes, you would just look for that oppositional behavior and that pattern for long periods of time, but then you'd want to be very careful to say, is this attention deficit disorder? Is the root of this an anxiety disorder? Is this child depressed? Is there some cultural or experiential factor that is making this child behave in this way for this period of time? So before you step forward and even think about oppositional defiant disorder, I would begin just exploring every other option before you go there, because the pattern for ODD is very difficult to face, and then the outcomes for children with ODD is very poor. So it's actually easier to tackle if it's anxiety or depression or some other condition.
What are the students' classroom needs, and what can the teacher do?
So if we step back and just look at a behavioral model for dealing with much of what happens in classrooms, and probably cognitive behavior therapy is the thing that we feel most comfortable using in schools, behavioral approach to behavior problems is what we use. So what we're going to look for is we're going to look to, and remaining positive, not to punish unwanted behaviors. That is not the model that we would ever use. What we're going to move toward is a more proactive, positive behavior support system. So what I'm going to look to do in a classroom is I'm going to try to reward pro-social behaviors, reward compliance, not only with the student that has ODD, but the students around them, so that they can see that participating in the group and listening and interacting and following the rules actually works to their benefit. So the more you can reward positive behaviors, which are just very much incompatible with the oppositional behaviors, you would see like a change in that. Something else you could do in the classroom is increase the opportunity for choices, so that child feels like that they may have a power over what's going on in the classroom. So you can do this or you can do this, choose which one you want to do. That way they're not challenging you, the teacher, as much as they are making a choice, oh, I'm in charge of my day, and you tend to see much better outcomes for them.
All right. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
Now, what would all of this look like in a classroom? I want to pause here for a second because this was all staged. This is my class, and they are acting. So don't be too harsh on them.
All right. Can everyone put their name on this paper for me, please?
Yes! Good.
No. How am I supposed to know whose paper this is with no name on it?
No!
If you're not going to listen to me, you're going to have to go back to your seat. Excuse me. Go back to your seat.
A child with symptoms of ODD needs a comprehensive evaluation by a psychiatrist or other qualified mental health professional. Medication is not usually used to treat ODD. However, medication may be prescribed when ODD is accompanied by one or more additional disorders, such as attention deficit hyperactive disorder, more commonly known as ADHD, depression, or anxiety. ODD is also more common in boys than it is in girls.
The cause of ODD is unknown. Some researchers have speculated that ODD results from incomplete child development. These children do not seem to learn the coping skills that most children absorb early in life. The disorder may be related to a child's temperament and the family's reaction to it. Poor parenting skills, loss of a family member to death, divorce or incarceration, or other family adversity may also play a role in children developing ODD.
Intervention and treatment of these children should begin as early as possible. Treatment can include individual, family, and peer group therapy. The goals of individual therapy are to improve the child's problem-solving, communication, and anger management skills. Family therapy involves parental training that accentuates ways to manage the child's behavior and an emphasis on communication skills to improve the parent-child relationship. Peer group therapy helps children with ODD develop social and interpersonal skills.
What are some things for teachers to consider?
When dealing with a child with ODD, it is important to remember that behavior management techniques that work well with other students may be ineffective with him or her. The child will frequently misbehave and annoy adults to elicit a reaction. Have clear expectations and firm rules and boundaries. Post classroom rules and a daily schedule so the child knows what to expect. Work hard to establish trust with the student by being fair and consistent. Understand that you are not the cause of the defiance, only an outlet for it.
Focus on only a few problem behaviors at a time. Decide what behavior you will ignore and what you will not accept. Communicate the consequences for those you cannot tolerate. When problems arise, questions you could ask the child are, is what you are doing working for you? What would work better? How could you have done differently to avoid the problem? And how may I help you? When necessary, meet with the parents and other adults who interact with the child so everyone can present a united front. Since these children are adept to convincing others that someone else caused their behavior, they are not included in this meeting. After stating the problem, brainstorm ideas on ways to assist the student in improving his or her behavior. Agree on a behavior contract or plan for the behaviors necessary for the child to be successful in school.
Provide recognition when the child exhibits appropriate behavior. However, be aware that since many children with ODD feel compelled to do the opposite of what you want, avoid direct, lavish praise. Avoid raising your voice or exhibiting any emotion. Be neutral and calmly say something like, "Since you broke the rule, this is what you will do." Be like a referee who simply states the consequence and holds the player accountable. Do not allow the child to argue. Just restate what happens when a rule is broken. Ask the school counselor to work with the student individually or in a small group to help the child develop anger management and social relationship skills.
Oppositional defiant disorder is a pattern of behavior that is hostile, uncooperative, and defiant. It's primarily a childhood disorder and isn't diagnosed in adults. ODD presents itself as a conduct disorder in adults.
There are usually subtle, if not definitive, signs an adult may have ODD. Frequent insubordination, tantrums, or aggressive behavior toward authority figures are all signs that you should pay attention to. Those with ODD will seem to disregard any societal rules in favor of their own wants. Spiteful or vindictive behavior is common, as in disrespectful language. An adult with ODD will also tend to blame others rather than take responsibility for this action.
If untreated, employees with ODD can be hard to manage or keep on the payroll. While letting them go may seem like a simple solution to a workplace disruption, you must proceed carefully. The Americans with Disabilities Act protects employment discrimination on the basis of a mental health condition. If you fire someone with ODD, you must prove that you did so for reasons other than the existence of his illness, such as he was unable to perform his duties or violated company policy. You must document each incident that contributed to the termination, the warnings you gave, and the steps you took to address the problem. Otherwise, you may open yourself up to a discrimination lawsuit or, at the very least, leave your company liable for unemployment compensation.